Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am MOHAMAD NIZAM bin WIRTA JUFRI. My metric number is 068190. So now I will present about my proposal defense titled Liberalism's Influence on Natural Disaster Management in World Politics. So now we move on to the abstract. This study explores the influence of liberal ideologies on global management of natural disasters with a particular emphasis on the part played by international organizations. Given the increasing frequency of intensity of natural disasters around the globe, it's vital to comprehend how these entities foster liberal ideologies in disaster response and mitigation. The research objectives include an in-depth examination of how these organizations advance liberal principles, pinpointing specific liberal theories in action, and assessing the real-world results of liberal strategies. The research employs qualitative techniques like thematic and content analysis to glean insight from scholarly literature and policy documents. By connecting insight from various fields, including organizational crisis, social work, and climate change, the study seeks to guide policymakers and practitioners, thereby contributing to evidence-based approaches for enhanced global disaster governance. In the end, the research aims to bolster global readiness to effectively tackle the intricate challenges presented by natural disaster through a detailed investigation of the relationship between international organizations and liberal ideologies. So the keywords is natural disaster management, international organizations, liberal principles, and disaster response. So we move on to introduction. So for the introduction, I divide to 3 parts. The first part is natural disaster management. First, definitions. For the definition, it involves preparing for, responding to, and recovering from catastrophic events. Second, scope encompasses prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. Third, objective, minimize harm to people, property, economies, and the environment. Fourth, limitation, focus on mitigating impacts, not preventing disasters. The second part is liberalism in international relations. The first one is contrast with realism, challenges the inevitability of power, politics, and war. Second, principles, stresses international cooperation, highlighting institutions, free trade, and democracy. Third, application to disaster management suggests natural disaster management is a global public good requiring collective action. So, the last part of introduction is the research focus. First, gap. Lack of understanding on how international organizations apply liberal principles in disaster management. Second, the objective. Analyze the role of international organizations in implementing liberal principles. Third is methodology. Use systematic analysis and content analysis. Fourth, purpose. Identify effective liberal principles contributing insight to international cooperation in disaster management. So, we move on into the background of research. As you can see it on your screen, this table contains a topic about natural disaster management and liberalism in IR. So, I've divided the topic into 6, which is definitions, scope, levels, non-state actors, roles, and influence on states. So the next part is problem statement. First, global perspective on natural disaster. The rising frequency and severity of natural disaster worldwide, emphasizing the global nature of the issue. The second is critical assessment of international organization. There is a need for a critical evaluation of the role played by international organizations in the context of natural disaster management. And third is focus on liberal principles. The study specifically centers on liberal principles and aims to understand how international organizations contribute to promoting these principles in the management of natural disasters. And the next is research objectives. First, to analyze the role of international organizations in promoting liberal principles in natural disaster management in global scale. The second objective is to identify liberal principles that influence in natural disaster management in global stage. And the third objective is to examine the effectiveness of liberal approaches to natural disaster management. Then, research questions. The first is, what is the role of international organizations in promoting liberal principles in natural disaster management on a global scale? And second is, how liberal principles influence on natural disaster management on the global stage. The third is, how effective are liberal approaches to natural disaster management in practice. So we move on to the next part, which is research methodology. So for the research methodology, we use qualitative research design. The study utilizes a qualitative research design focus is on exploring the influence of liberalism on natural disaster management in world politics. Aims to understand how liberal principles impact strategies and policies of nations in managing natural disasters. And academic literature and publications. Conducts a comprehensive review of academic literature, scholarly articles and publications. Focus on liberalism, natural disaster management and their intersection in world politics. Literature serves as the theoretical framework to understand the influence of liberal principles on disaster response and preparedness strategies. Then, policy documents and official statements. It examines policy documents, official statements, and government publications from various nations. Aims to reveal practical implementation of liberal principles in natural disaster management and provides insight into the ideological influences on policy decisions. So now we move on to the literature review. For the proposed defense, there is 10 literature review includes, but for this presentation, I'll choose 5. So the next part is significance of study. Studying international organizations' role in promoting liberal principles in natural disaster management is vital for enhancing global responses to increasingly severe disasters, addressing literature gaps, refining frameworks, and informing evidence-based strategies for effective global disaster response and recovery mechanism. And we move on to scope of study. This study explores how liberalism influenced global natural disaster management through international organizations, the principles guiding liberal approaches and their practical effectiveness, evaluating outcomes via case studies and comparative analysis. And the last part is the suggestion for the chapter outlines. You can see it on your screen. So that's all from me. Thank you.